keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about the 49ers offensive depth chart. Alex, a full breakdown into the positions, how they look going into training camp, how this thing looks. I'm excited about it.
I'm pumped about it, Ant. I'm extremely excited about it. And Chad, I apologize. I didn't have you going. That's on me. My bad, Chad. Hey, TCC, how you doing? But look, this is gonna be a lot of fun because we are talking 49ers offense and breaking down the depth chart, and I'm going to be laughing slightly at CBS and ESPN and their depth chart, Ant. But that's beside the point because it is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. They're not doing too hot, but we're doing just fine over here. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and that notification bell. And then let's jump into offensive depth chart breakdown and talking about specific things. And let's start with, first and foremost, the quarterback position, because what are you thinking here in terms of the Niners offensive depth chart? A lot of places have Trey Lance QB1, Jimmy quarterback 2, and then so on and so forth with those other two schmucks over there, Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld. How are you feeling about that? Is it a good list there? You feeling good about that breakdown there from other places?
Well, considering CBS just had Jimmy Garoppolo as the number one backup quarterback in the entire league.
That's fair.
Over Baker Mayfield, as it would be.
Yikes.
I think right now with Jimmy Garoppolo currently being on the roster, you have to consider him a part of this depth chart. And so right now I think it is Trey Lance 1, Jimmy Garoppolo 2, Nate Sudfeld 3, and then Brock Purdy 4. I don't know if you disagree with me, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it right now, and I'm thinking that potentially at some point Nate Sudfeld will become 2 if they move on from Jimmy Garoppolo.
I would agree with you on that, Ant. Look, I think the reality is that this is the Trey Lance era. This is Trey Lance's time. Jimmy is the backup right now. If you can't move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, then at least for camp, you're going to let him compete with Trey. Maybe he doesn't get as much of a chance, but you got to give him a fair shake to win the job, because if you don't, that locker room is going to turn on itself, and there's going to be some upset players back and forth, because Jimmy has been a leader for this team and has led them out of the doldrums. We've heard from Armstead talking about this, and he's brought this up and mentioned this, what Jimmy has meant to this team, what he got them out of, what he helped them climb out of, the doldrums of the early Shanahan eras and how bad that football team was. So there was a lot of respect for Jimmy Garoppolo in this locker room. That being said, you made the pick last year for Trey Lance for this specific reason. Trey is 1, Jimmy's 2, Suddy is 3, Purdy is 4, and even if you move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, Purdy is on the practice squad. It's my feeling, but that's just me.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. We'll get into the projected 53-man roster right before training camp. I know that's always a fun one because we get to kind of go into what our projections are. Are they right? No, but you're hoping to be as right as possible. As you said on John Chapman, or as it was said, you only have to be 50% right as a content creator, right? Sure. And we're usually a little bit more than 50% on that particular topic. It doesn't mean all the topics. I don't want people coming at us being like, you were dead wrong on this.
We have been wrong on things. That has happened.
A couple times.
That has happened.
It happens.
We've also been wildly right on things we had no business being right on. So
special teams touchdown against Green Bay to win.
Maybe not to win, but you call the game-changing play, and there were 2 of them in that game. I'm just saying, we have gotten some things right over here.
There you go. You're right, though. Not to win, but to make a big point and win the football game. Yes.
Both of those plays were game-changing and helped them with the football game. Just saying, Ant was right on it.
Yeah.
That was the second time you were right on special teams.
Special teams twice.
Second time.
They did not let me down, so... No. Hopefully, we don't have to worry
about that. In other games, yes.
Other games,
the 2 bold prediction games, no. So what have we learned? What we've actually learned is that while that's bold, it's actually a truth-telling. It's a fortune-telling segment, especially when special teams are involved.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that's why special teams is only involved a few times.
Accurate. Yeah, accurate. It's about less than 1/3 of the actual podcast.
It's true. We do not get into the wild that's bold special teams very often.
No, not typically.
But I don't think it's very bold where we're at with the quarterbacks, though.
Nothing bold
Trey,
about it.
Jimmy, Sudfeld, and then Purdy. I think it just makes the most sense right now. Of course, once Jimmy is moved, or if he is moved, then it changes accordingly.
Very, very accurate, Anta. Very much the case. And look, I think the reality is with this whole situation. This was the only logical way it could possibly go right now because the Niners made the move that they made. You gave it the capital that you gave. You came up to get this kid specifically because, number one, if he had waited one more year and come out in this last draft, he would have been one of the first players off the board, and he was going to be easily the best quarterback in this draft. That's not even close. So you get him a year early before he's, maybe a little more polished and comes out, and you let him get polished on your bench behind a top 15 quarterback in the league, and then you move off of top 15 said quarterback and into a guy that you believe can be a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, it's a better situation for the 49ers. I mean, they had him in the system for a full year. I mean, that gives him a head start. If he was drafted this year, it would have been completely different. He wouldn't have an understanding of the offense, understanding for what it takes to play in the NFL.
Accurate.
So Trey Lance is better off for sitting a year behind Jimmy Garoppolo. And the fact that he did get his feet wet with a couple of games, it definitely goes to help his development a lot.
That's right, Ant. That's right indeed. And look, let's move on to the offensive line next. Something I just got done talking about with John Chapman. If you missed that, you can go check that out after this. Is good. But now we can talk about offensive depth chart breakdown because I made some bold claims over there, Ant, about
Holy cow,
the offensive line. And I listen, I made those bold claims because I don't know what else to think about this O-line. It's really hard to understand where they're coming from. If you trust CBS, and then Donovan West is the starting center for the San Francisco 49ers.
I don't trust CBS.
Not even a little bit. And then when you look at ESPN, they got Jake Brendel and Donovan West. That's the 1-2 punch they have for them. They don't have Keaton Sutherland anywhere in that conversation. In fact, most places either don't list Keaton Sutherland or put him at the guard spot. There's the Daniel Brunskill aspect to that as well. There is the question mark surrounding what is Justin Skule to this team now? He was supposed to be the swing tackle option for them last year. He gets hurt, not available. Is that still the plan for Skule? Have they moved on from that plan by drafting some of the guys that they've drafted? Is Colton McKivitz a viable option to start? Horst had brought this up when we had him on earlier in this preseason, offseason aspect of the coming 2022 season.
Yeah.
And he was teasing this idea of Colton McKivitz being able to start at the left guard spot over Banks. What are you feeling on this? Because I, in a crazy world, had a situation where you have Nick Zakelj and Spencer Burford not on the 49ers roster, and if Justin Skule returns to form and Colton McKivitz continues to develop and get closer to the guy the Niners coaches have believed, is that a possibility?
Well, we know that I'm a huge fan of Nick Zakelj and Spencer Burford.
That you are.
But I will say this. There's absolutely no way Burford doesn't make this team. Burford is going to be on this roster, and I'm high on Zakelj. I think out of the two, Zakelj would be the one that's closer to not making this team, but I do believe both will make it. I think Justin Skule is going to be in the mix for that swing tackle spot. I think he's going to have to go in there and compete. But we've already seen the 49ers be willing to cut a Colton McKivitz. I think they'd be willing to cut a Justin Skule. I think they're high on him, but I don't think they're higher on him than they were on a 4th-round pick like they were Spencer Burford. Nick Zakelj, 6th-round pick. Justin Skule, 6th-round pick.
True.
Same value, but I think they do see a lot of value in what Nick Zakelj can do. It was interesting statements. I realized where you were going with it because you said, Skule, Colton McKivitz, were two guys that you were interested in keeping, a lot of veteran, ability there. And then Jalen Moore, who's a young guy, I'm sure they're not ready to move off yet.
No way.
Here's the big question is whether they're going to keep 8 offensive linemen or 9. I think that is where you cut somebody that you ultimately don't want to cut. They have to keep 11 defensive linemen, but I think there could be a way that you could keep a 9 offensive linemen and make sure you can keep a lot of this young depth. Now, we know Trent Williams is going to make this team, right?
Yep.
We know that Daniel Brunskill is going to be on the team, Mike McGlinchey, Aaron Banks. Those 4 are dead set, and I would think Jake Brendel, as long as he wins the center spot, is secured on the team. The question is after that, and I don't think you were crazy out of the bonkersville, but I think when it comes down to it, you've got to think that Burford, being a 4th-round pick, is a tremendous amount of value to move off of in his first year without really giving him an opportunity, because I do believe that he could be the eventual replacement for Mike McGlinchey.
I would agree with you on this. This is 100% an area I agree with you on this, which is why it was so hard. I had them tiered a specific way, and the reason why I have Burford just slightly underneath is he's on my spreadsheet. He's in an orange category. Orange meaning danger. Yellow category meaning questionable to make said roster. On the questionable category, you have Jake Brendel, you have Justin Skule, you have Colton McKivitz. You have those 3 guys highlighted in yellow, and then you have Spencer Burford in this danger zone, as it may be, glorious Top Gun reference, but danger zone, because there is a reality in which Colton McKivitz was the guy they turned to last year at the end of the season to be the guy to help them get into the playoffs, right? Make that push. If he continues to develop, they trust that. They know he's a guy that they can turn to in big moments and big situations, and he can get the job done. If Justin Skule returns to form and is the guy that they can rely on to be the swing tackle, that puts Burford in a bad spot. It does. It really does put him in a spot where you have to do something. You have to show something. But I think he has. I think that's why they took him where they took him in the draft. And it now opens the door for that 9th offensive lineman, keeping that 9th guy around and not going a different direction in this. And John asked me, hey, where would you want to go? What positions could you let go? And I gave him 2 positions, and the one I threw out was safety. But the position I should have actually brought up was tight end. Because if you are moving away from 2 tight end sets, and you don't need a bunch of tight ends on the roster anymore because you have Kyle Juszczyk, who could, in theory, play a flex tight end kind of H-back slot out there and take some snaps and some reps off. You have Jawan Jennings. You can go 3 wide receiver sets and have the additional blocker out there in space. That's not the end of the world. Maybe they only keep 2 tight ends, and that opens the door there in that aspect to keep another offensive lineman. Do you think the Niners would want to do that? And is that the route they go, especially if Spencer Burford and Nick Zakelj start making a real push and making Colton McKivitz and Justin Skule sweat a little bit in their spots, maybe get a little worried, a little shaky in the boots? Do the Niners sit there and go, hey, maybe our best option is 9 guys and let's roll with 9 guys, including a mix of some veteran guys and some young guys, and see what we got?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're going to have to find places along this roster to be able to cut because of the strength of the defensive line.
Accurate.
I think that's when it comes down to it. I mean, most defensive line, you would keep 10. You would, move on and have plenty of, spots for this offensive line that you want to keep, all the running backs, all the tight ends. It's an interesting topic that you bring up about the tight ends and keeping 2. I don't think they would have went out and signed as many as they signed if they weren't willing to keep 3. I do think they want to keep 3. Kyle Shanahan loves to go to 3 tight end sets, when he's got in the goal line situation, is short yardage. He also has got a new running game coordinator, and Forrester's going to want to go big at times too. That's what he did in Miami. That's kind of his staple. So I think that when it comes down to it, they're probably going to keep 3 tight ends. But I do like where you're going with it, where you're looking for spots, running back, tight end, looking for places where you can trim to keep this excellent D-line. The question is, could we fit 5 offensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen behind the 5 starters and get it to 8? I think one way to do it, Alex, what would you think about this? If they kept, let's say, Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Brendel, Brunskill, McGlinchey. Let's say that's the starting 5. Okay. And then you keep Jalen Moore, you keep Spencer Burford, and you keep Nick Zakelj. I think if you went with that group, that would be a possibility. That would mean that you're cutting Colton McKivitz again, which I'm sure would be very difficult. That's why I'd prefer 9 guys. And then you'd be cutting Skule as well, but I believe Skule could make it to your practice squad.
I would agree. See, that's the one thing that I would agree with you on, and this is why he's yellow on my spreadsheet, because I think as of right now he has the heads up, but I could easily see Burford or even Zakelj just sliding on in past up him because he's coming off of an Achilles injury. Yeah. Usually that first year back, you're not the same version of yourself that you once were. It takes that additional year, and if that's the case, you could see a not fully healthy, not 100%, not the best version of Skule, and that could put him in a situation where he could slide easily onto your practice squad. Do you think Colton McKivitz could get to the practice squad 2 years in a row?
It's a possibility. I mean, if you've done it once, right, you could get there again. True. I think in a perfect world, you have so much versatility there with Colton McKivitz, him being able to play guard and tackle and play left and right side. You would like him to be one of those guys. That's why I'm kind of hesitant about cutting a guy like Nick Zakelj, where they've seen so much versatility in him and talked about his versatility, whether that's him playing guard and tackle or him potentially even having the center ability as well. You don't really want to move on from guys like that. And you probably don't have to keep a backup center. For instance, if Daniel Brunskill ends up winning the right guard spot, he could always slide to center in case you have an injury to Brendel. So I think that it's interesting, this offensive line. I think it's going to go even more conversation. And for all the people that have been over on Patreon and channel members as well, they probably have already watched Slightly Offsides. Me and Horst went through the line in detail and talked about it as well. It's one of those things that's going to keep struggling to get through. And I think the only way it's going to be determined is when we actually get to camp, they get on the field and they start getting after it, because there's a lot of moving parts. And we know what we've got with Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks now. We've seen the improvement. We've heard the coaches talk about them, but we still don't know all the way what we have with a Spencer Burford and a Nick Zakelj.
You don't. There's question marks at plenty on the offensive line, and it's going to be very interesting. It's been very funny to watch ESPN and all these other places rank their guys and put these guys in different spots. From Colton McKivitz starting at left guard on both ESPN and CBS, and Donovan West being the starter over on CBS. Nick Sakelj being the backup right tackle, and Jalen Moore being the backup left tackle for the 49ers on ESPN. A lot of these places are trying to figure out what the Niners are going to be doing with this offensive line and these pieces. That's the nice thing about utility and having guys who are flexible, keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah,
everyone.
And especially the way the 49ers move tackles inside.
True.
Developing these guys to be able to play inside, they already have an understanding of how to play outside. So as long as they can transition into playing guard, it gives you a lot of versatility with this line. And they've done it with Jalen Moore already. We heard Matt Maiocco say early in the offseason that he had continued his transition to guard. So that would mean that that's probably where they see him playing this year. But he could always go back outside to right tackle. He practiced a bunch last year at tackle. So I think having those guys together gives you probably the most versatility at any. That means you do move on from a couple of guys, but I think the 49ers would like to keep 9, but let's see if they can work it out as far as roster goes. And trimming an area is going to happen. They're going to trim somewhere. You are talking places I still believe it's going to be wide receiver. I think they're going to go with 5 wide receivers, put 2 of these wide receivers on the practice squad if something happens, elevate 1. But I think that's the easiest place because those 5 guys that are up there are pretty solid.
You are not wrong there, and it would feel that is the route the Niners would go. We'll see, though. Paul, you're not wrong here, Big Papa. Having choices is a lot better than not having choices.
Yeah, I think also Paul said, I'm glad I don't have to make this decision.
You don't have to make the decision, and it's also good to have a bunch of decisions that you then ultimately don't have to make.
Yeah.
Big Papa is accurate, and as accurate can be. You're not wrong, my guy. Yeah, you're welcome for that one, Paul. Let's move on to the fullbacks at the fullback room.
Do we have to?
It's easy, right? It's perfect exactly as is with Kyle Juszczyk and Josh Hawkins on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think the only thing that could throw a wrinkle into this depth chart is Jason Poe. If all of a sudden Jason Poe's not an offensive lineman, if he's all of a sudden a fullback, he could go in there and challenge Hawkins. But Hawkins is actually a very good backup. I mean, he's one of those guys, he blocks, he plays with leverage as being a great collegiate wrestler. He's one of those guys that could have been a big-time collegiate wrestler if he'd have went somewhere else, but he wanted to go to Fresno State to be able to, go out and play football as well. Thank John Chapman for his breakdown. That's where I learned a lot about Josh Hawkins.
It's true.
So if you haven't checked out his 90-player breakdown, go check that out because he does have some cool information about that. So, but I do like Hawkins. But let's just be honest. There's absolutely no way this guy makes the roster as long as Kyle Juszczyk is healthy and fullback 1.
Agreed with you there. And so let's shift our attention to the tight end room. Let's go tight ends.
Ooh.
Let's go tight ends because this I don't know if this will be contentious. Maybe this is contentious for people. I don't know. I feel this is pretty simple for me. The reality is that George Kittle is your tight end 1. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's something you can take to the bank, cash a check twice in one day, and the bank is going to accept both checkings of the same check because of how great the check is.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's so great, Ant, that you can cash it as many times as you want, and the bank will continue to just accept it because it's George Kittle.
I'm going to order some George Kittle checks.
Just order George Kittle. They will keep. Don't do that, TCC. That won't work out in your favor. Look, there's Kittle, there's Charlie Warner, you have Ross Willie, you have Tyler Croft. You have as well Jordan Matthews. Who is the other gentleman? His name always escapes me.
Troy Fumagalli.
There we go. Troy Fumagalli. Troy, I apologize. I'm just not. I'm not
and Tanner Hudson.
And Tanner Hudson. I forgot about Tanner Hudson.
Yeah.
Look at that. Fumagalli and Tanner Hudson. So you have a lot of names in the tight end room. And I think you were right. I think it's one of those things where you don't bring in all these guys unless you want to keep 3, but I could also see a situation where they're not that high on Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly. They are not sure what Tyler Croft is, and so maybe they're just trying to breed competition by having a lot of guys in there. But the reality is Kittle's your tight end 1. As of right now, I don't know how I feel about the rest of the room. I know I feel slightly better than I did last year, just because Ross Dwelly is not anywhere near being tight end 2 category.
Right.
So I feel good about the competition brewing between Warner, between Croft. I mean, I guess Dwelly's going to get an opportunity, right, to show that he could be the guy again. I would imagine they're going to give Jordan Matthews a run in that spot. But I feel better about the competition behind Kittle than I think I have in years past. But I'm still not sold that the tight end room is exactly what it needs to be yet.
I think it's an interesting room, and we're going to get into this in way more detail next week. We're going to do a live about it. It's going to be one of our position battles that we actually do live on. Because there's just so many players that are involved in it. But I think when it comes to the depth chart right now, of course, with Warner and Dwelly together, I put them together to make Warney.
That's smart.
I think that both of them have to be considered in your top 4 tight ends at least, as far as the depth chart goes. I would even say that you have them probably as 1, 2, 3 right now, because Croft has to come in and earn a spot from one of the other two. If you're talking about talent-wise, I believe Croft would be ahead of Ross Dwelly. I think Warner would be in there, and then you'd have Tyler Croft as well. I think those are the top 4 guys. And then the other guys are trying to earn it, right? You have Fumagalli, who's been with the Denver Broncos. He's been with the Patriots, who plays without the finger. He doesn't have the index finger, but he's one of those guys that if he can stay healthy, he's a tough player. He's a 3rd-round pick out of Wisconsin, really good individual player. And then you have, of course, Tanner Hudson, who played with Tampa Bay, was part of the 49ers practice squad last year, so he has an understanding of how to play, with the quarterback, Trey Lance. And then you have the Jordan Matthews is one of the most interesting players on the entire roster, because you have the wide receiver skills, but with him putting on the weight to play tight end. And I think the big question with him is, can you block inline? If he's able to be an inline blocker, he affords the 49ers a lot of ability, because you could put him out there with George Kittle, and you have 2 legitimate threats in the receiving game. And then if he's able to block, then you don't have to always think that's all he's going to do. So he's very interesting to me. I think out of the guys that the 49ers have brought in, I think that I'm gonna say that they got a few guys that could start, so this is gonna be a battle. But I think Croft might be the one that's ultimately the most ready right now to be considered in that top 3.
I would agree with you on this. I think the reality is, I think Croft is the next most talented tight end behind George Kittle, like you brought up and mentioned. But yeah, you've got to come in and earn it with this group, and you got to demonstrate that you fit in the scheme in terms of what your role is going to be and what you're going to be doing. I think you did an even better thing, Ant, by blending Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly together, because if they were matched up like that, then you might have the second best tight end and everything that Kyle Shanahan's been looking for in tight end 2 behind George Kittle. The reality is that you haven't had that yet. You're hoping Croft can assert himself into that role, so that way you can just make the decision to go with a Warner or make a decision to go with a Dwelly, although I don't think there's any world in which Dwelly can beat out Charlie Warner at this point. I think Charlie Warner has established himself as the blocking tight end behind George Kittle, and if there's one thing that's important to San Francisco, it's the run game, and that gives Warner a heads up in that category. The only question will just be, is Jordan Matthews developed enough as a blocking tight end inline, Ant? Has he done enough, and can he show enough in this training camp to make himself a viable option? Because I don't think there's any world in which I believe that he can't be a better receiving option than Charlie Warner.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, as far as receiving options go, Jordan Matthews, Tyler Croft, Fumagalli, I think all of them, maybe even Hudson, are better options than Charlie Warner as far as receiving game. Warner's calling card is the blocking. And that's where he's going to be superior to a lot of them. He's better than Hudson. He's better than Fumagalli. He's better than Ross Dwelly. He's better than Jordan Matthews. That's his way to make the team. And so I think the 49ers know what these tight ends are, and I think they're looking for guys who are more well-rounded. If Charlie Warner during the offseason developed as a pass catcher and a route runner, then potentially he's can solidify himself as tight end too. But I think Tyler Croft is an interesting guy because he's coming in. He's got that 6'6" frame, 250 pounds, blocks pretty good, is a legitimate receiver as a tight end. To me, he's one of the most complete tight ends we have behind George Kittle. So I'm excited about him being added to this room. I think he might be hard to keep out of the starting 3 spots.
He's going to be tough, and we got a $2 super chat here from Bobo as well. Shout out to Bobo, and for the $2 super chat. Do you guys think we'll have an MVP candidate? I do. I think his name is Trent Williams.
Yeah, you know what? If they would give MVPs to linemen, Trent Williams would have to be considered one of them because he was the best player in football last year, and he just plays offensive line. A lot of times when it comes to MVP, it has to be a receiver. We know that it's hard for Deebo Samuel to get put into that conversation, even though he should have last year the way he handled everything. It's always usually the quarterback. So
true. Accurate.
If Trey Lance had himself a big year and some of the numbers that we've seen put out there, Alex, if he had a year like that, he would be considered in that conversation. So maybe we might have it depending on how the season goes on offense for Trey Lance.
Very true. And shout out to Warren. Happy belated, sir. Happy belated birthday. What's up, fellas? And hi, Jess. I hope you're doing good, Warren. And
yeah,
look,
what's up, Warren?
I think the reality is that with the 49ers in the tight end room in and of itself, you have specific things that you're looking for, and you know what you have in George Kittle. You have one of the greatest in football, one of the best in the game at the position in all aspects of what you need a tight end to do. You have the same thing at the offensive line at the tackle position. You're hoping that Trey Lance can be there at the quarterback position. And Ant, what about the wide receiver room? Because yes, Deebo Samuel is the do-it-all threat, but can Brandon Ayuk continue to ascend? And then what does the rest of the wide receiver group fill out behind? I think you and I have our 5. We have our 5 that we're ready right now to crown these 5 and go into the season and not worry about it. I don't think there is a competition at this position. I think this is the only position going into camp where I am sure that the 5 names that we are high on right now are the 5 names that are coming out and being on the 53-man roster going into the season.
Yeah, I think barring injury, I think you said it right. That's the only case. Thank you. That's the only case that you could see. Somebody supplanting one of these top 5 guys, and the top 5 guys, of course, are Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Danny Gray, and Ray McLeod. Oh, almost forgot Ray.
Almost forgot the guy who might wear 14.
I think there could be a question about how these guys are slotted behind Deebo and Brandon Ayuk. Everyone always wants to talk about who's the third wide receiver. If we just want to talk about third wide receiver as far as percentage of snaps, I think it would be Jawan Jennings next, because Jawan Jennings is going to be out there on third downs and he's going to be out there blocking. So I think that could happen. And then I think the other thing you'll talk about probably after that is Danny Gray. He's going to want to be taking the top off the defense. They're going to want him out there. So I think he would be considered your 4th wide receiver, and then Ray McLeod. So I think those are the 5. And then after that, it gets real interesting because there's a lot of wide receivers that could potentially be the 6th wide receiver. And I put it in parentheses because I think wide receiver is probably going to be one of those places they need to go ahead and cut in a spot, keep a couple guys on the practice squad, so that way they can keep more defensive linemen.
Agreed. And shout out to Luis for becoming the newest member of the Cutback crew, man. We appreciate that.
What's up, Luis?
Thank you for the subscription. But you're right. I mean, those are the 5. Those are the names. And then after that, I think there's competition there actually for that 6th spot. Is it a guy like Malik Turner? Is it Marcus Johnson, Keyshawn Johnson, Austin Mack, Tay Martin, Taysir Mack? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of these guys.
Yeah.
The only one that I know that I've seen any bit of anything on, like that I vividly remember, is Keyshawn Johnson, because he played with Arizona for a little bit and did some things. Now, the last time the Niners brought in an Arizona wide receiver, his name was Trent Sherfield. He ended up doing some nice things for San Francisco, especially in the special teams game. So who knows? The problem is the 5 names that we've already named, those guys are all going to have an impact on the offense first. Like, that's their first priority. Like, the first number one thing they're going to have a big impact on is that. And then there's going to be some things in the special teams game that Ray McLeod can add, that BA may add as well. Jawan Jennings may add into the fray as well. I mean, John Lynch just talked about that with Jawan Jennings. Like, you need to be a dog on special teams as much as on offense. So there are guys who can do both those things right now. I don't know about the rest of that wide receiving core. And if they do decide to keep a 6th spot, it would actually kind of surprise me.
Yeah, it would surprise me too. And I think at that point, it would have to be someone with a special trait. I actually talked with Chapman last week about the 6th wide receiver spot. And the guy that I was the most intrigued about was Marcus Johnson, because he had 4.39 speed.
Yep.
Having another really fast guy, I think, would make a lot of sense for the 49ers. He could help on special teams as well. But you have other guys as well that are special teams known. And you brought up Keyshawn Johnson. He played in the playoffs last year as a special teams guy.
True.
So I think that there's potential for some of these guys to make it, but I don't know how they're going to make it over the 5 guys we talked about. And the 49ers don't normally rotate more than 5 wide receivers during a football game. So I think you would have to have something special. That's why Marcus Johnson stood out to me as somebody that could do it. I know the young guys look really good, right? They're really long. They have some ability. They fight hard. I just don't see Tay Martin or Taysir Mack being able to crack this roster. They could be practice squad guys, but this is not the same roster that Kendrick Bourne, for instance, would have been playing on. If Bourne would have been a part of this, he probably wouldn't have made the initial 53-man roster. That's no slight on him. That's just how talented the 49ers have turned this roster into.
Correct. They've continued to build. They've gotten good and then gotten, I guess, gooder is the right word. Better. We'll just go with gooder. I'm just going to go with gooder. Don't make fun of me, chat. Knock it off. Don't laugh.
I like gooder.
But look, Jawan Jennings is the perfect example of that, right? A little more sizey guy, not the top end speed. Now, I want to say, I don't want to put Tay Martin and Taysir Mack in the same category of speed as Jawan Jennings. I'm not going to do that to them quite yet. You got a chance to prove me wrong in training camp, you two. But the size-wise, they do have that aspect, that similar sort of thing that Jawan Jennings has. But he had to sit. He had to mold. He had to be molded. He had to grow. He had to develop. He had to learn what he needed to do in this system, what his role and the expectation was for him. That's the same sort of thing we could see for a Tay Martin and a Tayseer Mack is practice squad. Take some time, get there. In a shocking turn of events, Ant, you really like the wide receiver with the top end skill set and the 4.39 speed. I'm absolutely stunned that you love yourself a player, Ant, with an intangible skill set that can't be taught.
Yeah, usually I do, right? I mean, that's the way to go.
That's your thing.
Yeah, it is. Find an elite trait that you can build on because really you're not a complete player, right?
No.
Most of these guys aren't a complete player, so they need something special about them. That's what drew me initially to Danny Gray, was he had an elite trait that I felt there was a foundation to build on. Then you get into his route running, and it's pretty good. So you think that he can do a lot of things in the offense, not just take the top off. I know that's what the conversation often is, but he can do so much more than that. And then Malik Turner, we got to keep him in the conversation because he's had over 500 snaps in the last 3 years on special teams, which means that the 49ers decide they need to go that way, special teams. Maybe Coach Snyder's like, hey, I need this guy. Maybe the 49ers find a way to keep him on the roster. It's probably not going to happen, but you never want to just throw it out as a possibility. So Malik Turner is someone to continue to keep a monitor on, but a lot of people are already putting him in the 6th spot. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be 5 guys.
I would agree with you. I think 5 guys is the key. I think 5 guys makes the most sense. And I think 5 guys allows you to be deeper at other positions. And I think those 5 guys make you very deep already at the wide receiver spot. If you go a 6th guy, yes, you're even deeper, but I feel there's a significant drop-off between 5 and 6, and you know what? Let's just cap it at 5, and if we have to go to somebody else, then you can make that decision at a later time.
Yeah, because you know out of the guys that they have, they can get at least 2 of these guys to the practice squad, probably one young guy, one veteran.
Also, Emmanuel Sanders is still on the market.
He is.
So if something were to happen, you could always go make that signing.
I mean, there's a lot of really good players out there.
I'm just saying.
Julio Jones is on the open market.
And Will Fuller also.
Will Fuller, talk about elite traits.
He's got ridiculous
speed on speed. So, yeah.
He's so fast, he makes Danny Gray look kind of fast.
Does that mean John Ross is still available too?
No, I think he got signed.
Did he really?
I think he did.
Wow, that would break my heart.
I think he did get signed.
I thought Fuller would go before it.
I thought
Fuller would go before him, but it's nice to see that there's a lot of speed still out there, a lot of ability. I don't look for the 49ers to bring in a high-priced guy. Of course, they would have the financial ability to do so, but so far, I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to bring anyone in.
True. It looks like he's a Giant still, Ant.
Oh, really? I thought he was a free agent.
I thought he was too, but I think they may have re-signed him.
Oh, wow.
I'll have to try and pull and see. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see what happens here.
It's okay. I guess I'll just live without my hopes of John Ross finally playing for the 49ers. I mean,
Kyle Shanahan will also be in the same boat as you, wishing that John Ross could end up in San Francisco or be a 49er, and it's just not happening for some reason, and just never working out the way he wants it to. Look, I think it's interesting with the 49ers in the wide receiver position. I think they have a lot of things they can do there, but I think the 5 guys they have allow them flexibility throughout the rest of their roster to be able to do a host of different things. And we'll see. We'll see if they decide to go that route and just stick with the 5 and not have a 6th, or if they decide to pull a trigger on the 6th, and that may mean problems for the O-line. It may mean problems on the D-line. There's going to be some positions there, Ant, where they cut in other areas. Maybe they feel that their best players, their best chances of being able to be competitive in all 3 phases of the game is to keep that 6th wide receiver. I doubt it. I will press X to doubt all day long. But now let's move to the running back room, which I think is the most contentious room of this whole thing, Ant, because you have your Trey Sermon stands of the world. You have your people who love Jordan Mason. You have people who aren't high on Jeff Wilson. You have people who love Jeff Wilson. You have people who are already in love with Tyrion Davis-Price. You got your Elijah Mitchell stands of the world. There's a lot of ways to construct this running back room. Elijah Mitchell is one. It's not. I mean, that's not. There's no question about that.
No, I agree 100%.
But everything after that is intriguing because there's a lot of different ways for them to go about compiling this roster. But I think the reality is that you probably seeing the end of the JaMychal Hasty reign in San Francisco this upcoming season.
Yeah, barring injury, once again. I mean, I think that is a way. And the running back room is always interesting because injuries seem to happen. And when injuries happen, then you like to have that extra guy. And in this case, they have a couple extra guys, right? You have the JaMychal Hasty ability to play as a third down back. You have Jordan Mason, a guy that a lot of people are really coming along to. The fact that he's got the big body and he's able to do the things that he does. Lou is already chanting Mason, Mason, Mason. I'm going to stick.
I'm shocked.
I'm going to kind of stick to where I've been all along the way. I have Elijah Mitchell as number 1. I think TDP and Trey Sermon are battling it out for 2. And if you watch our training camp battles video, you know how we think that one's going to go and how those guys are going to be used. If you haven't seen that already, go check that out. It's a good video. And then I think after that, it's Jeff Wilson Jr. versus JaMychal Hasty for the third down back. Mm-hmm. I think, where Jordan Mason's going to have to battle TDP, and Trey Sermon, I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to be in the third down back role this year. He's a versatile guy. He can do it all. And I think having a guy that can do it all is better than having a guy like JaMychal Hasty that's kind of pigeonholed into that third down back role where you could put Jeff Wilson in there, but then if you need somebody to take big carries in the middle of the game, he can go do it. And I think that's what separates him from a JaMychal Hasty. So then I think you have a more complete running back room with Jeff Wilson Jr. as the third down back than you would with JaMychal Hasty being that guy.
I would agree with you on that. Look, I think the Niners have set themselves up in, I would say, almost all the positions. All the positions that were problems last year, they are stronger this year and deeper than I think I've ever seen them in San Francisco. The O-line was a strength last year for the 49ers, and this year it feels like it's taken a step back, but we don't actually know if that's the case. The cornerback room was questionable last year, and this year is deeper than I've seen it during the Kyle Shanahan era. The wide receiver room felt thin last year because Brandon Ayuk wasn't a mainstay early on in the season, and it looked stronger than it ever has, and the running back room was depleted by injury and felt like it was on its last legs pretty much from week 1 till week 18. It just felt like it just didn't have enough. There weren't enough horses in the stalls ready to get out of the gates and help carry this backfield. And this year, it feels like there's too many. It feels like there's too many options. There's too many things. How in the world are they going to be able to figure out the best core and the best group? And I've joked and we've talked about this a little bit. We talked about this in that sermon video, in the Sermon v TDP video in terms of training camp battles. Is could the Niners actually decide to keep only 3 of these guys and add up and stock up in other places because of how talented those guys are? And if Jordan Mason does elevate and shows he could be a reliable running back, then they could sneak him onto the practice squad and go a different direction. But that would mean potentially having to move on from Sermon and or trading Sermon or cutting Sermon, and that is a risk in and of itself, because if you let the guy walk and don't get anything back for him, that's kind of a net loss for you, especially if he goes off and does well somewhere else.
Yeah, and Lou is asking, can you guys please explain your love for Sermon? What has he done to warrant it? I actually don't love Sermon at all.
No, none at all.
Zero
love.
Very clear that did not feel he fit the system when he was drafted. They're trying to turn him into a guy, that can play the system. They've seen something in him. Just when it comes down to it right now, we haven't seen Jordan Mason play any snaps in the NFL at all. We haven't seen him play in training camp, nothing. So it's just tempering expectations. There's a perfect possibility that Jordan Mason could go in there and outplay Trey Sermon, and I would be perfectly okay with that.
It's actually a great thing if that happens.
It would be great. I think when it comes down to it, though, we have to look at Sermon the same way. We've seen him play against Green Bay, so we have a little bit of an understanding of who he is and his development from what we saw at training camp to what we saw during the season. Was it marginal? Yes, but there was a little bit of change from preseason all the way through. So you have to go on what you see. And right now, we just haven't seen Jordan Mason. When we get to camp, if we see Jordan Mason tearing it up, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to tell you, Jordan Mason's tearing it up. Jordan Mason could beat out Trey Sermon. I'll do that. But right now, you just don't know. So until then, I think going into training camp, he's the 6th guy on the depth chart. It doesn't mean that a week into training camp, we won't feel that he's not one of the top 3 or top 4 guys, but we have to wait until we see it. And I haven't seen or read anything that makes me think that's where he's at already.
No, I would agree with you. You just don't know. And this is a great question, Freddie Mac Dre. Who could we trade Sermon for, and for what? Who could we trade him to and for what? I don't know. The reality is that you need a team that's going to run a little bit more of a zone look. Maybe Chicago. They do run a lot of gun with Justin Fields out there. They play together at Ohio State. There's familiarity there, so maybe that combination, that tandem would work. But the problem is they have themselves a pretty stout backfield back there and some running backs that they trust and rely on. But with the Tariq Cohen injury and him not being healthy, and the rumors were they wanted to re-sign him, especially if he was healthy and passed his physical, maybe Sermon would be a possibility and an option there. The problem is that you're not going to get what you paid for Sermon. You're not getting that back in return. Now, if Jordan Mason is the guy who's beating him out for that roster spot, then it doesn't matter because you're taking a third-round pick that you missed on, getting some sort of draft pick back, and you've hit on an undrafted free agent. You're fine. You're going to walk away from that in a net positive situation there. But that has to happen. Like, that has to be the thing that actually plays out and occurs. If it doesn't occur, Jordan Mason's not the guy, and you move on for Trey Sermon, and Jordan Mason's just a practice squad player, that could end up being a net negative if Mason doesn't ever pan out.
Yeah, I mean, with Sermon, you don't know what his market's going to be. The one thing I do know is we're going to see a lot of him in the preseason. He's going to get a lot of carries. I don't think we're going to see Elijah Mitchell much. I think we're going to see a lot of Trey Sermon, a lot of TDP. I don't think we'll see that much Jeff Wilson Jr. I think it's going to be Jordan Mason and those other two, and I think that's where the real battle's going to happen, and we'll see what happens with Trey Sermon. If he plays well but not well enough to make the team, then potentially the 49ers could get, like Baymax said, a 5th-round pick for him or something like that. Right now, I would think it's going to be, at most, a 7th-round pick. I just don't think there's a lot of value there. There could be a team that values him, and we'll see what happens. We know that the Seattle Seahawks often like to pick up 49ers players, but I can't see the 49ers being a willing trade partner with the Seattle Seahawks for Trey Sermon. So in that regard, he would have to be released. So I don't know what that market's going to be, but I also don't know what Trey Sermon looks like right now. All I'm going off of is what I seen last year. That's probably not fair to Trey Sermon the same way it wouldn't be fair to Aaron Banks or Jalen Moore or Trey Lance, who everyone tells me should be so much better. And I agree he should, but I got to afford Trey Sermon the same ability to get better as well.
Agreed. You gotta give them the equal opportunities, right? Equal chances and equal chances to make that proof and to show their work, I guess is the right way to put it. Warren here, this is a great question. It's just a great comment. Shanahan piles up a lot of injuries at the running back position. We should carry at least 2 running backs on the P squad, the practice squad, and he's right. We should. And I think they want to. I think ideally they would like to do that, and I think they do have the names and the pieces that they could try and sneak there, whether that's Jordan Mason, and if he doesn't, wow himself onto the active roster, and potentially JaMychal Hasty because he was injured and missed some time last year, and maybe people aren't high on a smaller third down running back and who can come in and is a really good pass catcher out of the backfield, but a lot of systems don't necessarily know how to utilize that aspect of a running back coming out of the backfield or lining him out wide.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to JaMychal Hasty, he kind of does pigeonhole you a little bit. I mean, yeah, he's one of those guys that makes a lot of plays, as a pass catcher. We saw that right away. His first play in the NFL, they motion him out to the slot, and he runs a slant and catches the ball. And we were like, oh, we got to keep this guy. I mean, he ended up getting hurt. He was just a practice squad guy at the time, but I think he has that ability. The problems are he's not the best in pass protection. He's okay. He's not the best. But who would you rather have on the field, him or Elijah Mitchell, him or George Kittle? You know what I mean? Like, you have some decisions to make there. Him or Ray McLeod. Could Deebo Samuel fill that third down back role at some times and match up with a linebacker out of the backfield? I think there's just some interesting things the 49ers could do, with the versatility of other players that could make it harder for him. So keeping a guy like Jeff Wilson Jr., who's proven he can catch the ball in the backfield, might be the better route with him being also a 3-down potential back.
True.
I just think that there's a little bit more ability there. But I do like JaMychal Hasty. It's a hard move to make because we've been fans of him, for a while now, ever since he first got into the league. It's too bad, but it looks like, this roster is just getting so much better that players that you like are probably not going to make this roster. I think he's a bubble guy for sure.
They're getting stronger. They're getting faster. They're getting better. And it's not, it makes it tough. That's why the lifespan for a typical player is, 3.5, 4 years in the league. It's not, guys aren't putting together 10-year, 20-year careers on the norm. That's not what happens in the NFL. It rarely happens in most sports. Now, the NFL's lifespan is significantly shorter than a lot of the other major sports, Ant. But the reality is that this game takes a toll on you. Number one, so you're not always the best version of yourself coming in every single year to a camp or practices or just whatever. The training you're putting on your body in the offseason also does its number and takes some damage as well and takes its toll. And then you're constantly getting replenished every year. There's a host of guys, a gaggle of guys and new prospects as it may be, Ant, coming in that either get drafted or even available as undrafted free agents. So the competition is always at its peak. If you're a back end of the roster guy or a guy who's just sneaking onto 53-man rosters, there's no guarantee the next year that you will be in the league. So if you're lucky enough to put together a career that lasts longer than 4 or 5 years, you're the exception. You're not actually the typical player in the NFL. You're the exception to the rule. You're not the norm, because most of the names in the NFL that you know are the guys who have done something that most players don't do, which is carve out a long-lasting career that can span a decade. Most guys are in and out in a snap. It's like college. You go in as a freshman, as a rookie, and then 3 years later, you're done.
It's true. I mean, it comes and goes really fast, and that's why these guys try to maximize their ability, and that's why they're maximize the value. And David Campbell says, any word on how McGlinchey is doing? Right now, McGlinchey, from everything we've heard, is just on target. He's ahead of schedule to be back. We'll see what happens when he gets to training camp. Sure. But there was the one comment that I liked the most that came out was that if McGlinchey, if it would have been training camp instead of OTAs, McGlinchey would have been able to go out there. I think that's a good sign. We'll see, though. We won't know ultimately until he gets out there. And I wonder if he'll be a full participant or if they're going to ease him in. I think they might be smart easing him in, easing Javon Kinlaw in, and just making sure those guys are healthy when we get into the season. We don't really need Mike McGlinchey proving what he can do in training camp. Let those reps go to, Jalen Moore, Spencer Burford, Justin Skule. Those guys need those reps. McGlinchey, just knock the rust off, get out there and get it done.
Well, and I'm stunned. Mr. Corey Ampe Mac feeling the same exact way about McGlinchey. I'm absolutely surprised by that. Psych, no, I'm not. You guys are consistent. You're not liking of Mike McGlinchey, which is fine. Look, I think the reality too with McGlinchey and with Javon Kinlaw is you may have a situation where they don't play any single preseason game this year.
Yeah.
I mean, what's more important to the 49ers? Getting a better idea of what Mike McGlinchey and Javon Kinlaw look like with the starting group, or making sure that they're healthy for week one? I think you'd rather have both of them out week one playing than, getting them some reps in the preseason and possibly doing some damage, or just getting them out there just a little too soon.
Yeah, and the 49ers Station has a question. It says, 49ers Cutback, what do you think of the future? Is it beyond great, and will we win a couple of rings with Trey?
You better win a couple of wins. You were this close to winning a couple of rings with Jimmy Garoppolo. If you move off of Jimmy to Trey Lance and don't win a few rings, there is going to be answers. There are going to be questions and answers that you need to have. And if you don't have them and you don't get this close ever again, this could be the 3 or 4 years from now, we could be talking about this being the beginning of the end of the Kyle Shanahan era in San Francisco if you don't get close to being back where you just were.
Yeah, I think they need to win one. I think that's
at least
important.
One. At least
win one. If you win one, it validates the pick. It validates trading up to 3. Everything you needed to do, because that has been what has been so elusive, and not just during the Kyle Shanahan era, but all the way back. I mean, they haven't been in the Super Bowl and won one in over 30 plus years. So I think win one Super Bowl. That's the most important. That's the most important thing, is getting that one. But I do think the future's bright. I like what Gary said earlier. It's so bright. You need shades right now.
I like it.
I like the young players. I like what the 49ers are building here in San Francisco. So yeah, I'm excited about what they can do. Yeah,
49ers stations. The future is bright. The question is it bright because someone turned on a light, or is it bright because of all the star power that's out there? We're going to find out. And I'm hoping it's the star power. I hope it's Trey is going to become a top 5 quarterback in the league. I hope it's the continual ascension of Trent Williams. I hope it's a healthy 49ers roster. And, Kyle Shanahan flexing that genius muscle of his on the offensive end.
Yeah, and Warren says, how do you guys feel about Mo Hurst? Do you think he'll make the team, and will he find snaps?
I think he will find snaps. I think he will make the team. A healthy Mo Hurst is going to make this football team. I don't think he can't.
Well, what's very interesting is that is coming up in our position battles as well. Mo Hurst versus Kevin Givens.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow's episode, you'll get all the answers you need about that battle.
Warren, how much did we pay you for that plug?
Warren is a Michigan fan, so that's why he likes Mo Hurst so much.
That does make sense.
But yeah, that's one of those cool position battles. Mo Hurst is a very talented player, and no one really got to see it last year because of the injuries. He was injured all the time, but his lateral movement quickness make him one of those players that could do a lot for this defensive line, and he's a guy that can play all 3 downs from interior defensive line position. The 49ers don't have many of those. They have guys who are 2-down players, but 3-down players are hard to come by. Mo Hurst is one of the better ones on the roster.
Agreed with you there, and Warren, it'll be interesting to see what his role actually carves into, and if he stays healthy, and what he could actually break out into, because he was between him and Arden Key, I actually expected him to be the guy that blew up a little bit last year and had himself a better season. But hey, I'll take the Arden Key doing what he did last year, and let's get Mo Hurst doing some positive things this year. That'd be great for the 49ers. Carm Beer asked, wish we had kept Salvon Ahmed a few seasons ago. He could have easily locked up a roster spot over a guy like JaMychal Hasty, which probably accurate. And to Salvon Ahmed was a guy that they did not want to have to do what they did with him, trying to move him to the practice squad, because they didn't think he would get there. And sure enough, he didn't.
Yeah, they made a decision between Hasty and Salvon Ahmed, and they went to Michael Hasty. Ahmed ended up being a very talented player as well, and somebody that made some plays in the NFL. I think both guys were good in the system, and they just felt that maybe JaMychal Hasty was a change of pace compared to the other guys they had on the team. Maybe Ahmed fit what the other guys did, but it would have been really nice to have both of those players actually. When all the injuries started happening, including 2020.
Yeah.
But they just don't have enough spots. That's why the roster cuts and roster 53-man building is so important to this team and what ultimately your season looks like.
Extremely important, and that's why the Niners have taken the path that they have taken in terms of depth, making sure you have talent top to bottom at a lot of key spots, especially the spots that are the identity of your football team. The D-line, yes. Your O-line, yes, and a lot of people may not like the depth, but they have a lot of names and a lot of talented pieces on the O-line that they feel they can mold into something, and we're going to see. This is going to be Coach Forrester's ultimate test, and ultimate test this year with the O-line, because it's his O-line, these are his guys, and it's his running game at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. Chris Forrester's going to be putting this thing together. I'm interested to see how the run game looks with these running backs and then with the offensive line, the way he puts it. But how many times are we going to see big sets? How many times are we going to see wide open sets? The give and take between Kyle Shanahan and Chris Forrester is going to be fun. But I do like Forrester. I like his mindset. How much will Anthony Lynn have to be a part of that as well? Because we all know when Lynn is a part of a team, their running game takes off. Every time he gets somewhere, he ends up being top 5 all but one time in his career as a coach. So you expect the 49ers run game to spike in the right direction. And it was already going pretty darn good with Mike McDaniel. So I'm curious what happens with this running back room and also just what happens with Forrester in the run game.
You are not wrong, and I want to see. I want to see what it is. I want to see how much Anthony Lynn has his fingers in the cookie jar, as it may be, that this is the 49ers run game. See how much of his fingerprints end up all over this thing and see what it looks like this year, because it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a blending of styles and scheme and philosophy between Kyle Shanahan and what he wants to do, what Mike McDaniels just did this past season, what Anthony Lynn has done, and what Coach Forrester wants to do. There's going to be a lot of chefs in that kitchen and a lot of different things brewing, and we hope it's a good stew at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're hoping you put all the right pieces together, to make this thing work out. And, Gabriel Clark is saying starts with the O-line, makes me nervous. And that's been a lot of the comments that have been coming through on our videos has been, concerns about the offensive line. Some people are concerned about Mike McGlinchey. Some are concerned about the entire right side. Some are concerned about the center position. I think that when it comes down to it, each one of those positions is a question mark that needs to be answered. And that's why training camp is going to be so much fun this year. When we get out there, we're going to be able to see all these position battles. But don't worry, we're going to be talking about those position battles all along the way because there's more position battles that are going to be coming your way.
Tons more position battles and tons more content, tons more videos, more slightly offsides, more hit or miss, more everything. And you get it all right here on 49ers Cutback, whether it's on YouTube, over on Patreon, which is the best way to support us, by the way. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but it is the best way to support this channel because, it's less taken out from the YouTube overlords and things of that nature, but over on Patreon, additional content for you. Channel members here on YouTube, extra content, that same content as well. If you don't want to have to go over to a new platform, completely understand. And then also Spotify, traditional podcasts, you find all of this stuff here. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's tons more topics along the way. And if there's more questions that you have, TCC, lay them on us because we'll take a few before we sign off for the night. Yeah,
if you have some questions, go ahead and populate chat. And I'm really excited about the content that we have coming up. There's a lot of cool conversations. So, I mean, if you enjoy good content, this is your first time on the channel, let us know what you think about everything, of course. Give us a subscription if you think we've earned it. That would be really nice. It goes to help us. We've been pushing for 3,000 subs, so we'd be very appreciative of that. I am excited about the conversations that are coming up because there's still a lot of really good ones, and we're building towards training camp, and ultimately training camp is gonna set the tone for the entire season. So I'm excited about it.
Very true. And David Campbell, you like Forrester's mindset. He likes his line set. Ayo.
Oh.
Ayo.
Well played by David while going into it. Yeah, I like that.
That was solid, David.
Yeah.
That was absolutely solid. Definitely the best thing I've seen in chat all day. That right there. Not anything else. That one.
Yeah.
49ers Station. It's annoying because they found a way to do business like no other, and they would always do business like they do now.
The Rams,
The Rams, yes. Those freaking Rams. It's annoying. It's frustrating watching, especially having watched our team build this roster, build this roster specifically through the draft, not selling the farm and selling the future in order to get that ring and getting so close twice and then watching a team right down the way and just throw away their future for it right now and it all work out for them.
And we got the 199 super chat from Jess from your number one fan, Caden. How's it going, Caden? I hope you're doing well over and having a good day, and I'm sure I'll see you later.
You probably will. Yeah. It's a good chance.
Good chance.
It's a good chance. And Gary, you were not wrong. The quest for 3,000 subs is real, really real. Have you guys just accepted Brendel as the starter, or are you guys paying for Treader like me, says Mr. Corey? I don't know, Mr. Corey.
I don't think I've accepted that Brendel's just going to be the starter. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse.
I've accepted that.
Yeah, I've accepted that he's at the forefront right there. He's going to have to. Someone's going to have to go in there and take that spot from him. But he's going to have to earn it just like everyone else. I think they're going to give the young guys some chances. And I think if Jalen Moore is at the level of Daniel Brunskill, they would consider moving Brunskill over if he's a better option than Brendel. But we'll see what happens. And I think the prayers for Treader still could be answered. You never know what San Francisco 49ers are going to do. But it's all going to come down to how these guys are playing. And if Brendel's playing really well, there's no need for Treader, right? So I guess we just got to...
If he's playing well, you're right. There is no need.
Yeah, then you've got a cheaper option. You just got to trust Forrester, trust this offensive line coaching staff that they're going to be able to get these guys in the right spots. But no, I haven't accepted that outright conclusion. Brendel is for sure stamp it the center. I'm not there with it yet.
No, it's going to take me a little bit to get there, Ant. And Jess, you asked earlier, why are you laughing? I'm not laughing. You're laughing. No, I'm not laughing. 49ers Fogey going with Sakelj. I get it. There's a lot of things to like about Sakelj. The coaching staff likes Sakelj. And who knows, maybe that ends up being one of the sleeper guys. Although John was throwing out Keaton Sutherland as a sleeper, and he just put him at 61.
I know.
He put him at 61.
I haven't watched his breakdown yet, but I did see that the video's out of him being 61.
61st.
I'm looking forward to watching that.
He had some interesting things to say over there about Mr. Keaton Sutherland. And look, I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think it might be an under-the-radar sort of dark horse sort of competition battle to be looking at. He could sneak up on some folks, although if you ask ESPN, he's a guard.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
We'll see. And you know what? I am interested to get out to training camp where we can see all the things that are going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Guys get moved around. Will we finally see? Because, I know that was one thing you talked about with Chapman, is that the guys aren't taking snaps right now, right? Yep. Let's see if Nick Zakelj starts taking snaps, if Spencer Burford takes any snaps. What is happening with Sutherland, if he's still getting the second team snaps. It's all going to be interesting because right now Donovan West is the third center amongst that group, but Donovan West has a lot of work to do as well. So it's going to be interesting as training camp goes through. And then when we get into games, who is playing what positions, that will give us a better idea. And then we can have a more defined idea of who's going to make this roster and where they're going to make it.
Very true. And Carson here just said it, easy to trust in the development of our young players when their roster is so deep. That is very accurate. And Baymack, and with the most accurate thing he said today, this one is the most accurate. This country fell apart when the Niners stopped winning Super Bowls.
If we could prove a direct correlation, maybe they would help the 49ers win more Super Bowls.
Come on, Goodell.
Yeah.
Baymack just said it. You want to heal the ills of the world? San Francisco wins the Super Bowl in 2022.
Yeah, and David Campbell says Lance mobility will help the line look good, unlike another quarterback I could mention.
Brock, why would you say that about Brock?
His mobility is definitely going to help. And one of the things I did actually comment on somebody commented earlier about the offensive line, and I think one of the things to remember that's going to help this offensive line tremendously is the run game. Now, Trey Lance is going to have an effect on that run game, but the run game being better is going to help this offensive line who is run first. Everyone but Trent Williams. Trent Williams can do it all, but everyone else's run first, abilities is what this team is built on. If they get it going, the play action pass will be there. If that gets there, then that means Trey Lance can take shots downfield, make it easier, but less traditional pass sets for the 49ers offensive line is better for Trey Lance and better for this offense.
Yes, and yes. Just absolutely yes. And running the ball effectively is going to help this O-line top to bottom, except for Trent Williams, because Trent Williams needs no help because he's just an absolute godsend of a left tackle that we may never, ever see the likes of in San Francisco ever again.
No, he could be the greatest offensive lineman of all time in San Francisco.
He's still in his prime.
Let alone a first ballot Hall of Famer for the NFL Hall of Fame. So
nuts.
I think he's one of those guys that's just a special player. And at some point, he's going to be listed as the great player that he is. But to me, he just looks like he's trending in the right direction. He's not going anywhere. He's getting better.
What do you mean? We paid him too much. You paid him too much money.
People that said that probably not.
Is their foot
Yeah.
The question isn't is their foot up their behind and coming out of their mouth. Is how long did it take to go up said behind and out their mouth?
Yeah, that was one I never really worried about. Was Trey Williams getting a lot of money because he's one of those guys that is going to go out there and work. He wants to win a championship. That's what his motivation is, and that's why he's putting in the work. And there's nobody like the Silverback. His second level blocks are the best in business.
Devastating too.
And I have been watching a little bit of Aaron Banks from preseason last year, by the way. He has some devastating blocks in preseason as well. So I'm interested to see what that left side looks like, especially with a new body, because it is profound watching him in preseason and then seeing the videos of him now in OTAs. His body has transformed tremendously. Yep. And he still weighs the same amount of weight. It is crazy. I'm excited about Aaron Banks.
Shout out to Aaron Banks for completely transforming himself into what he has now and doing it in a year. He is taking it seriously. He's taking it to heart. He's taking it to task. And I'm looking forward to seeing how much that pays off for him and how it pays off for the left side of the line, which the Niners ran behind a good chunk of last year. And hopefully we can do that again. Rinse and repeat that one more time. Look, TCC, I hope you enjoyed. We hope you enjoyed this 49ers offensive depth chart breakdown discussion, looking at all the positions, seeing how we feel and seeing if, the names are kind of lining up across the board where we kind of feel they're going to be. And if you did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell because you got a great conversation tomorrow. You're going to have a great conversation Wednesday and then a nice live Q&A on Thursday.
Yeah, lots of content coming out. There's an episode pretty much every single day. If it's, it's either 11 a.m. or live streams at 5 p.m. So if you're looking for the daily video, it's going to be at 11. If it's a live stream, it's going to be at 5 p.m. Or special cases like today, 5:15. Alex was on with John Chapman, and that's always a good one. So if you didn't catch that episode, hop over to John Chapman's YouTube channel and check out the 49ers Brunch podcast with Alex. If you have time and you didn't watch mine, watch last week's as well. Some good content. Chapman's doing a very good job with all the things that he's doing. But there's good content all week on this channel, so check it out.
Make sure you check it all out as much as humanly possible. You don't want to miss any of it, and the best way is to make sure that you're not only subscribed, but that notification bell is rung, because then you get notified when videos are going live, and you can't miss them. That's the great news. TCC, absolutely great comments. Some funny stuff as well in there. TCC, you always keep us on our toes. We really appreciate that, and I think it's about that time.
Yeah, let's chalk another one up.
Catch you later, TCC.